Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we continue this weekly celebration of the outdoor lifestyle right here in the great state of Michigan. We talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues, and of course, even some wild game cooking. I'm here every week. We do this for 3 hours on stations across the state. I'd also have a podcast version of this radio show that is also available. So I would encourage you to check out whatever method of consumption of this content works best for you. But of course, I always promote the radio show. So what's going on? I have had a couple of very good walleye fishing trips on Saginaw Bay since we last talked. It's a short season for me because I got the Angler Quest late, but I'm trying to make the most of it because actually my season is starting to wind down now. This last week I didn't fish because I was getting ready for the golf outing, and then I've got an Ontario bear hunt coming up here very soon, so I'm starting to think that direction, but I will try to sneak out on the bay 1 or 2 more times. And the fishery is holding up quite well. My skinny water, my beloved skinny water, has not been producing, although there are fish in there. There are a lot of weeds. If I would be patient enough or tough enough just to stay in there and tough it out, meaning run about 4 rods and just sit at the back of the Angler Quest and just keep cycling rods to keep the weeds off, we could catch fish. But there is a spot offshore that has some structure that I can find 12 feet of water. 12 is I like 12 feet. I like 12 better than I like 20 feet. And I'll tell you what the program has been. On one side of the Angler Quest, and I'm running 10 rods, the outside rod 60, and these are number 7 flicker minnows. The outside rod 60, and then 50, and then 40, and then 30 closest to the boat. On the other side of the boat, I've had 2 at 55 and 2 at 45. Now, you got to space those out a little bit more, and you got to make sure the baits are running right, or you're looking for a tangled mess. On the back corners of the Angler Quest, spoons with number 30 jet divers, about 25 feet back, and those are just at the corners. And those have been pretty good. And I'm trying to think if we've taken anything other than a walleye on that setup, and I don't think so. If you're looking just for walleye, that's the way to go. And they've also taken some bigger fish, too. This last trip, it was a charity for the Arc of Midland, and I do charity charters. The Arc of Midland. And the high bidder, Speed, and his family fished with us last year. Great guys. They love to fish. I love having them on the boat. Last year when they were with us, we caught a catfish. Now, normally on my trips, if we catch a catfish, I do my best to lose it in the net and not even bring it in the boat. Now, they do fight hard. They're hard on your gear. They're hard on your cheap little flicker minnow baits. But I don't like getting them in the boat. They're slimy, and I just, listen, there's nothing against catfish or catfishermen, but when I'm targeting walleye, I want to catch walleye. I don't want to catch catfish. Last year we catch a catfish, and the guys say, well, can we keep it? I'm like, if you want to, we can keep it. I never, ever fish with a first mate except on this ARC trip because my buddy, my neighbor, my friend, Doug Cook, is involved with the Arc of Midland. And he said, I'll go along and help you out. I'm like, sure, let's do it. So last year we keep a catfish, and I don't want to clean it. So Doug says, I'll clean it. Doug cleans it up and got some nice fillets out of it. Well, the guy, I think we had 2 of them last year that Doug cleaned up. So the guys used them in catfish sandwiches, and they loved them. So this year, as we leave the dock, they say, "Can we catch some catfish again?" I'm like, "Well, not if I can help it." But we did, and we caught some big catfish, and we kept them. And listen, not trying to be a stick in the mud, I said, "Okay, I will clean one of these catfish." Can I just say right now, publicly on the record, I will never clean a catfish again. Don't ask me to clean a catfish. Don't ask me to fillet a catfish out. I thought I was going to throw up. Again, nothing against catfish or catfish anglers. I just didn't know how to do it. Doug gets his knife out there, zoop, 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 and gets beautiful fillets off this thing. I had no idea. You can't fillet them like a walleye. But it was kind of slimy, and the meat was kind of yellow. And again, I'm not. Catfish are a wonderful target if that's what you're targeting. Speaking of catfish, did you hear about the new state record catfish taken in Monroe County by a bow fisherman? I think bow fishing is wonderful. I have bow fished before. It is an absolute riot. But on my Facebook page, I posed the question of should there be separate categories for fish that are taken, say, by spear fishermen, by bow fishermen, and by hook and line fishermen, because right now there's not. If you legally take a fish, say, for example, this new state record catfish, it doesn't make the distinction how it was caught. It was just, okay, was it legal? And this fish was certainly legal. Then it becomes a new state record. So I just asked the question, should there be different categories for different methods of take? And I don't have a dog in this fight, and I really don't care. I just think it's a valid question. And I actually had to delete the first version of that post because the comments went negative. You gotta love anti-social media, right? It's so easy to get negative when you're sitting there on your phone or in front of a keyboard, things you would never say to a person to their face. Like the guy who took that state record catfish, bow fishing, congratulations. You have a state record fish. That is something to be proud of. He took it legally, bow fishing. Nothing wrong with that. But people came out against bow fishing. Can we not do this anymore? Have we not reached the point in our world today where we got to quit complaining about other methods of hunting and fishing and quit criticizing and fighting with fellow hunters or anglers? I had one guy, and I made this comment online, and I had one guy post and say, well, I know, Avery, you're like, everything's kumbaya. We've got to all get along. No, we don't have to all get along, but do we all have to fight as well? Lord knows we have people out there in the wings who are against us. What about the crazy politician here in Michigan, in southern Michigan, who drafted this legislation that would ban baiting for bears on public lands? What is it? Now, is that an innocent attempt by a politician who is ignorant to the facts, who thinks he is doing something positive, or is it something more nefarious, and is it an absolute outright anti-hunting effort? I don't know the answer to that. Coming up later in the show, Amy Trotter of MUCC will join me to talk more about this. But with that in mind, right, when you have politicians in Michigan proposing legislation to ban baiting for bear hunting, why in the world would we, as hunters and anglers, fight among ourselves? I just don't get it. And the time, in my opinion, is gone for this. We don't have time for this. It is not the right time for this. If you want to, let me rephrase this. If you want to, in your closed circle with face-to-face conversations with fellow hunters and anglers, if you want to hash this out, go ahead. We don't all have to agree on how to do things. I'm just saying we should not be publicly chastising and criticizing and fighting with fellow hunters and anglers. Now's not the time. And social media is a method of doing that publicly. So knock it off. What else is going on? I got so many things to talk about this week. How about if I just say, coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, DNR wildlife biologist Chad Stewart joins me to talk about the upcoming deer season. Are there any changes in regulations? When are we going to get baiting back for whitetails in Michigan? I'll tell you right now, it ain't going to happen unless the politicians get involved and make it happen. In hour number 2, Chris Kreiner on summertime coyote hunting. That's something that you don't hear a lot about, but there's quite a few people out there doing it. Then, as I said, Amy Trotter of MUCC joins me with her reaction to the proposed legislation to ban baiting for bears. And I'll ask her, is this just an ignorant politician trying to do something right, or is it a blatant anti-hunting act? And then in hour number 3, Captain Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters in Manistee. We're headed to Lake Michigan. It's that time of year. We're talking to Paul about fishing for kings and more. And then wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar joins us with another recipe. I'm going to see if he can't do a catfish recipe for us. Or maybe a beaver recipe. We got beavers on the pond behind the house now. I'll talk more about that too. There's so much to talk about this week, and I've only got 3 hours to do it. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. This weekend at Linwood Beach, I'm pretty sure it's their Customer Appreciation Weekend. Also Saturday, the site of the annual Angler Quest Owners Tourney. I will be there for that. I'm not fishing in it, helping to MC the event, and looking forward to that. Linwood Beach, a great place, great facilities, great location. The website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Also on social media, linwoodbeachmarina.com. So my mind right now has been kind of in a fishing mode. I haven't, and an upcoming bear hunt mode too. I got to be honest, I haven't even remotely thought about the fall deer season yet. I'm just not passionate enough about it these days to get that involved, invested. The reason I deer hunt these days is to help keep the tradition alive. The tradition that is part of our Michigan heritage of deer hunting, and more importantly to me, my family tradition of deer hunting. That's why I deer hunt, because it gives me the opportunity to get out there with my son James and the grandkids and just bond in that way. Beyond that, the other stuff that is deer hunting today, the fighting, the bickering, the griping, I just don't want any part of it. And for me to even get back into deer hunting, I just had to disassociate myself with that side of it and just embrace what it was that I used to love about deer hunting. So even though I haven't paid much attention, to be honest with you, what's going on, I know many of you have. I know many of you are hardcore. I know many of you are counting down the days to the deer season opener. And that's why I've got Chad Stewart of the Michigan DNR on the show this week to talk more about that, and he's with us now. Chad, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. I am enjoying the summer, what it has to offer. Looking forward to fall, and I'm sure that you guys being biologists at the department, are well into fall when it comes to your mindset.
Oh yeah, our mind is always on fall, especially in the deer program. So, unlike you, we think about deer, I think seemingly 24/7, because that's just what we do, and we're passionate about it. And, yeah, we're I think ready for it to begin.
Do you ever get away from that, Chad? Do you ever say in the summertime, just pick up a fishing rod and go out to the lake, or just can you ever get away from it, or is it always on your mind?
It is always on my mind, for better or worse. It's probably why I have a lot more gray hairs a lot earlier than I thought I would. But it's always on my mind, and whether I'm fishing or out watching a baseball game or playing softball or coaching softball or whatever, it's always on my mind, and you're always thinking about it.
Here in Michigan, deer hunting is such a big part of our history. I always say in Michigan, if you want to start an argument, you talk politics, religion, or deer management. And you find yourself right in the middle of this. And you've been in the crosshairs over a lot of issues. Does that take its toll? Can you disassociate yourself from that? Can you just say, look, it's part of the job? Or do you internalize this and say, come on, guys, give me a break?
Probably early in my career, I internalized it a lot more. As I've gotten older, I don't know if I've gotten wiser or tougher skin, but, I've started to reframe the discussion around it a lot more. And, what I start thinking about when there are these sort of volatile arguments around deer hunting is that both sides are passionate about it. And that's okay. You can work with passion about something. That means that, behind passion, that there's care. People want what's best for deer hunting. People want what's best for themselves. So, as long as that's the underlying thread that connects both sides of the argument, there's commonality there. And then I think our deer herd will ultimately be in a better position moving forward, because there is that passion that exists despite the arguments. There's a desire for improvement and a healthy, sustainable population moving forward, and we can work with those things. It's when some of the other things get in the way that prevent productive dialogue from occurring. But as long as there's passion, I think we're in a good spot, because that's way better than apathy.
Absolutely. Well, then we're good, because there's passion in this state. What about the upcoming season, Chad? Any changes? I mean, the first one that jumps out at me is we're going back to bucks during the youth hunt.
Yeah, it's weird to talk about, because it never really left, right? So it's hard to say that a change was made and at the same time nothing different is occurring. But you're right. Last year, our Natural Resources Commission made the decision that starting this year, both our Liberty Hunt and our Independence Hunt, our Liberty Hunt is primarily our youth hunt, although hunters with qualifying disabilities can participate. Our Independence Hunt is the 4-day hunt in October, when only individuals with a qualifying disability can participate. Both of those hunts were scheduled to be antlerless only beginning this year. But between that decision last year and the start of this year, this May, our Natural Resources Commission reversed that decision. So hunters who have always been eligible or who will be newly eligible to participate in those seasons will still continue to be able to take antlered and antlerless deer during those seasons.
Let's talk about the youth hunt for a minute. One of the things that sticks in my craw is that people gripe about the youth hunt and they say the kids are shooting the big bucks. They're shooting my big buck. Number one, it's not your big buck. It's not yours till you put a tag on it. But I think a lot of hunters are being selfish over that, and I get a lot of criticism for that. But statistically, do you see a significant number of big bucks being shot during the youth hunt?
No, I haven't looked at this recently, and a lot of this because some of our check station stuff has gone away. But before I looked at this, it was probably about 5 years ago or something. The percentage of yearling bucks reported during the youth hunt was actually higher than what we would see in firearms, archery, or muzzleloading season. So, yes, you get that picture in the paper of the kid holding a really big buck that's probably, 4.5, 5.5-year-old, and you sort of associate that everybody's doing that. But by and large, that's more the exception than the rule. So, I think I'm like you. We should be celebrating those harvests, whether that harvest occurs in the middle of September or the beginning of October, biologically, it doesn't make a difference. So let's celebrate that kid who has legally harvested that animal, has made a memory that will last a lifetime, not only for them, but whoever was mentoring them as well. And let's try to lift each other up when we talk about deer hunting and celebrate our successes.
You say the check stations have pretty much gone away. Why is that, and what's the impact or the effect of that?
Yeah, there's a couple things going on there. So, I mean, one, we've always done it, and it's always been historically an opportunity to get the age data of a small subset of animals that we test during that season. The firearm season is when most of those animals are coming through. And it's a great engagement opportunity for our staff to be out there communicating with hunters. It's great to be able to distribute the patches. It's great to hear their stories, hear their concerns, and just sort of put a face behind our badge when we're out there working. They have gone away because ultimately they've been an incredible cost in terms of manning, supplying those resources, and then too, the data that we had, the age data, wasn't really that influential in terms of overall recommendations. So we sat there several years and looked at it. It's like, here's this big effort that's being applied, and it's not really contributing to what the final product looks like in terms of our recommendations. So it made a lot of sense for us to move away from that. Of course, we do have check stations that still exist in some parts of the state, and try to work on our engagement and face-to-face contacts with the public in other manners.
All right, I'm going to go back to my original question, and if I have to cut you off here because we got a break coming up, we'll pick it back up. But so, are there any changes coming up for this upcoming season?
The only other big one is really in the Upper Peninsula, along some of those very northern units and some of the western units, what we call our high snowfall areas. Hunters in those areas, specifically archery hunters, can resume taking antlerless deer this year on either their deer or their combination license. And that was a change that had been made about 10 years ago. And really for the first time this year, it's being reestablished.
Crossbows in the late season in the UP?
Still prohibited.
Is that a biological decision, or is that a social decision?
How much time do you have before break? That might be a longer answer.
I got 2 full minutes.
Oh, okay. I think the concern initially when that was prohibited, when crossbows were legalized in archery season, whatever that was at this point, Mike, probably almost 20 years ago, close to that. Mm-hmm. I think there was concern that the crossbows would be very effective at taking, especially those migrating deer coming out of those high snowfall areas, coming down into maybe the mid snowfall or low snowfall areas, and hunters would over harvest with crossbows those migrating deer, specifically those migrating female deer. What we have seen since we've gone to the online harvest reporting is that there is very, very minimal effort being expended on the deer herd in the Upper Peninsula. There's just not many people hunting in the Upper Peninsula in December. So in my mind, it's more of a social issue than a biological issue. I don't really see a need to biologically prohibit that. And of course, there will be others that disagree with me on that.
We're talking with Chad Stewart, the big game specialist for the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. Chad was also telling me, too, that there's, and I'll follow up with this, Chad, after the break, but I think there's somebody else coming in that's going to help be responsible for fielding questions on managing the deer herd. I don't know. We'll talk to Chad after the break about that. I find my conversations with Chad very, very interesting. It's obvious the guy is passionate. I believe he has the best interest at heart of Michigan deer hunters. But you cannot talk deer hunting in Michigan without bringing out a significant percentage of deer hunters don't like the DNR. It's not Chad's fault. I don't know whose fault it is. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on two stations, WIDL 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM and WKYO 1360 AM. You can also hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM and north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. All right, I said I'm not as passionate about deer hunting as I used to be, and I'm not. I acknowledge this. However, we will be, by we, when I say we, I mean my son James and me watching. We'll be putting in food plots on the lease property here very soon. If you're doing that, I recommend checking out Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Rich Grazan does a wonderful job in both managing properties and just outright selling seed to help you do the work, which is what we do, / James does. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. And after we record the radio show this week, we will record this month's Killer Food Plots podcast. So keep an ear out for that. Right now, talking with DNR big game specialist Chad Stewart. Chad, is there somebody else coming on board who's going to help you out?
Yeah. They just started this week, actually. So we in the department restructured for years. I've really been the only one that had the title of deer in my title. So we realized that there needs a lot more capacity for some of the deer issues that we currently experience. So last year we were able to hire a new deer biologist, and she's stationed up in Gaylord. Because we restructured, and I've assumed a supervisory role, we brought in someone to backfill my position. They started this week, and it's actually a name that's going to be familiar to a lot of Michigan sportsmen. Dr. Brent Rudolph is going to be returning to the department.
No kidding.
As the deer, elk, and moose management specialist for the agency. Yeah, Brent was our former deer and elk program leader. About 10 years ago, had different roles within the department, was a social scientist and a researcher, had moved on to some nonprofit work over the past 8 years. But yeah, he's returning and just started on Monday. So working on getting him back and caught up to speed, but he'll hit the ground running here, I'm sure, very soon. Yeah,
I'm sure he will. And in fact, I will look forward to talking with him in the future. So last year, if I remember right, was the first year that we had this, what I'm calling basically an extended firearm season. I mean, you could start hunting November 15th and go on for 6 weeks or so. And that, if I remember right, was an attempt to harvest more deer. With lower numbers of hunters, you had to come up with creative ways to try to take more deer. Did that work?
That's the $1 million question, right? So yeah, we did. One of the rules that was passed last year was an extended antlerless season. Of course, we had our normal 15-day firearm season, November 15th through the 30th, and we had our traditional muzzleloader season, which is not looking so traditional anymore, right? I mean, in the southern lower, it was any legal firearm. Last year, they changed it that the northern lower could be any legal firearm. So essentially we had, an extended firearm season there. We've always had our late antlerless season, and then they added on, I can't remember how many days, it was a little over a week of what they call the extended antlerless season in the southern lower peninsula. It probably had, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, Mike, I'm mobile, but it probably had a slight additive effect is what I would call it, and that there were probably a few more antlerless deer shot because of those changes. Overall, we did see an increase in harvest last year compared to the year before. But I tell you what happens is that when you already have an extended season like that, we've already provided so much opportunity for hunters to get out, and it's oftentimes more so than what they need. So they just start to redistribute their hunting efforts a little bit differently. So even though we had an extended season that contributed, I think, over 10,000 antlerless deer to the harvest, what we saw was that our late antlerless season was significantly down. So when you combine the extended season and the late season, maybe there's a few more deer taken, but it's not this massive additive effect that you would anticipate. You just start to to redistribute and reallocate how that harvest occurs within a longer period of time. And that's typically what happens once you've reached a saturation point in terms of opportunity.
Will we see the same season dates this year, though?
Similar, yes.
Yeah. And when I say dates, I don't mean specific dates, but in general, the longer extended season like we had last year.
Yep, it's scheduled to continue again. One of the advantages that, if hunters are interested in that extended season is
I think we got you on the edge of a cell. You're getting all garbled on me. Chad, hang tight. It's a good time for that. We got to take a break here. Chad, if you can still hear me. I don't know if you're driving or moving or what, but your cell just went a little bit squirrely. So we'll try to reestablish our connection with Chad Stewart, the big game specialist for the DNR, now in a supervisory position. I'm looking forward to Dr. Brent Rudolph coming back on board. I used to talk to Brent years past when he was with the department. So we'll take that break. The website, by the way, for the Michigan DNR is michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Also, don't hesitate to check out their app. I find that app very, very useful for a variety of purposes, including mandatory check-in of deer. And that's another topic, right? But I don't think we'll get into that this week. Anyway, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation and this first hour with DNR wildlife biologist Chad Stewart of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold WCBY. That's 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM and north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. We're talking right now with DNR wildlife biologist Chad Stewart. Chad, gosh, I hate to bring this up. CWD. Some people think it's a joke. Some people think it's the end of deer hunting in Michigan. I suspect the truth is somewhere in between. But where do we stand on that these days?
Yeah, and apologies, my cell phone may have cut out a little bit.
Hey, don't worry about it.
Segment, Mike,
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's somewhere in between. I think we'll continue to have really good deer hunting, even with the presence of chronic wasting disease. And at the same time, I think it's something that we should be mindful of moving forward. We are hearing anecdotally in places like Montcalm County, where the disease is the thickest and most widespread, that there are more reports of people starting to see sick or sick acting deer. And I would expect those reports to continue to increase and become more common in the future. That doesn't mean every deer is going to be infected. That doesn't mean it's going to be everywhere in the state, but it's something that we should really be mindful of and try to do what we can to try to limit the spread as much as we possibly can.
Is it the department's opinion or position that you are and will remain against bringing back baiting in the Lower Peninsula in the foreseeable future?
I guess I can say that I think the science is pretty clear that when you concentrate animals, the likelihood of transmission occurring increases. And there are natural concentrations that we can't do anything about, and there are human-induced concentrations that we can control. And while we fully expect CWD to continue to spread with or without baiting, it seems, at least to us, to make sense that if there's a way to potentially start to slow it down or to reduce the spread of it, that keeping baiting prohibited makes sense, at least in areas where we know that the disease exists. And that goes for chronic wasting disease and bovine tuberculosis. I think we often forget to talk about bovine tuberculosis, which we've had for 30 years longer than chronic wasting disease and can have a tremendous impact on our cattle industry.
I just, as far as the baiting, I mean, you want hunters to take more deer, and baiting would be a tool that would allow hunters to take more deer. Now, some hunters think it's not, it's unethical or whatever, but there's no, I mean, our lease property, Chad, like I said, we put in food plots, but the people around us bait. And where do you think the deer are going to go? They're going to go to the bait. So I just feel like baiting, if a hunter chose to do that tactic, I think they could be more effective in harvesting deer, and you want hunters to take more deer.
We do, and theoretically, I agree with you. When we've done surveys to our hunters in the past, at least in the southern lower peninsula, about looking at success rates for hunters that use bait and hunters that don't use bait, what we see is no difference. And that might be surprising to a lot of people. But when you start to think about, one, how many deer we have in the southern lower peninsula, you can be quite successful without the use of bait. And two, when you have bait, you tend to be a little bit more selective. So how many people are going out and shooting the first doe that comes up on the first day that you're out hunting? And it's probably not very many. People are still looking for bucks. They're still looking for big bucks. So they're still only taking probably one, maybe two deer out of the year. So now when you start moving further north, baiting does have an impact on success rates. But I would also argue that those are the areas that we probably don't have as much of a need for control in our population because our numbers aren't as high.
All right, before we let you go, real quick, how are UP moose doing?
That's a good question. We just finished a survey this winter. We're still going through some of the data, and hopefully those results should come out soon. I'm actually expecting our core estimate to be a little bit lower than what has been in the past, but that number hasn't been finalized yet. What's really exciting is that we actually started a moose project, a capturing project last fall, and it's going to be continuing this winter. It started last winter and it'll be continuing this winter. We put collars on 20 moose last year, and we expect to put collars on 40 more moose this coming winter. So the amount of information already coming out of that has been fantastic, and I only expect that to grow.
When you get that data back that you're talking about, let's get you back on and talk about that, because I think people are really interested in Upper Peninsula moose.
Yeah, who wouldn't be? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can talk more about some of the results of the collaring and obviously the results of the survey as well.
All right, I will look forward to that, Chad. Appreciate your time. We'll let you get on with your day. DNR wildlife biologist Chad Stewart, big game specialist, or at least former big game specialist. Now he's a boss, right? Now he's got other people he can tell what to do. Michigan.gov/DNR, Michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, we're going to change gears. We're going to talk to Chris Kreiner about summertime coyote hunting. And then Amy Trotter of MUCC. I want to ask her, look, is the politician who suggested we ban baiting for bears in Michigan, is that a blatant anti-hunting effort or just an ignorant attempt from a politician?
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Right here in the Outdoor Magazine radio network, on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with me. You know, I do think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station. After all, this is a radio show. It is, let's see, it is scheduled, it is produced, it is recorded, it is distributed, it is uploaded, it is downloaded as a radio show. And so I think if you can, please listen to the show on your local AM or FM station. But if you can't, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, yes, this is a 3-hour show. Or if you live in some part of our state, and by some I mean Southeast Michigan, just not being too specific here. There's a reason I'm not on a broadcast station in Southeast Michigan, but we won't go into that right now. Doesn't matter, though, because you can still hear the podcast version of the show in Southeast Michigan and the entire state of Michigan and indeed the entire country and the world. Everybody's got a podcast, right? I get that. Podcasting is ubiquitous. Everybody has a podcast. But I do have a podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show out there, and you can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page and all of the popular podcasting platforms, including, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, the whole gamut. I do like podcasting, though. I am still in the back of my mind toying with this idea of starting a new Avery talks to his friends in the outdoor industry video version of a podcast. I mean, I really, really want to do it. But can I be really honest with you? I really, really don't want to put the work into it that it's going to take to make it good. I don't want to do something unless it's as good as I can possibly make it. And having played in the video world for more than 20 years, I'm just not sure I want to jump back into that and, again, put the work into editing a video podcast to make it the quality that I'd like it to be. But in the meantime, I have audio podcasts out there in addition to the radio show. Each month I do an audio podcast for my friends at Offshore Tackle and Angler Quest Boats, also Killer Food Plots. And when we are done here in the studio today recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Killer Food Plots podcast with Rich Krizan of Killer Food Plots. And you'll want to listen to that because it's getting to be the time here in the next month or so that you're going to want to start working on your fall food plots. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice, when you are hearing my voice, with the broadcast show, the podcast, one of my other podcasts, I thank you for that. I would not have been able to do this. I would not be able to do this for as long as I have without your support. My broadcast and my advertising partners, I can't say enough about them. They allow me to do this. The broadcast partners, the radio stations that air the show, thank you for that. And you, because if you weren't listening, none of this would matter. I wouldn't be able to do this, and there'd be no reason, there'd be no way to pull it off. So thank you. You are the ultimate, you are the key piece to this puzzle. And thank you for listening. I do appreciate it. Also appreciate you following me on social media, too, by the way. One of the perks of being an old guy, being around for a long time, is I've really had the chance over the years to work with and talk with some very, very interesting people who are absolute experts in their field. As I say all the time, I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be. But I know experts. I have a lot of friends who are experts. Chris Kreiner is one of those guys. If you go to his website, ckreinermedia.com, you'll see what I mean. This guy is dialed into the outdoors. He is dialed into the communication end of the outdoors. And he is dialed into coyote hunting. And that's what I want to talk about this week, specifically summertime coyote hunting. Chris, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Great, Mike. Thanks again for the invitation.
Always a pleasure. I find it interesting. I find it fascinating what you do. Not just the coyote hunting, but the way you document these hunts. Your video, your photos are second to none, Chris.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I get that comment quite a bit. It's a neat niche and technique to get the nighttime photography to work out the way I do.
Well, they are beautiful images. I would encourage people, again, to go to the website, ckreinermedia.com. Let's talk about summertime coyote hunting. The season just opened back up here recently, and I understand you've been out there taking advantage of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Season opened up July 15th, and we were all chomping at the bit to get back into the fields. And it couldn't have been timed any more perfect this year because the wheat harvest happened pretty much exactly as the season opened. And when you get into the predator hunting and you learn a little bit about the prey that they target, when you got hay fields and wheat fields that are coming off, those mice are in there. They're picking up any of the leftover pieces, and the predators go wild in those locations. So those are great spots to get in there and target predators that you haven't been able to hunt for the last few months.
I bet it was frustrating during that closed season not to be able to be out there.
It's been very aggravating, and I will say I will give a little bit of credit where credit is due. There is a couple of NRC commissioners who are strongly working towards getting this season opened back up. I know it's been frustrating as a sportsman and as a diehard coyote hunter to have the season closed on us, but there was opposition to closing the season to begin with. There just wasn't enough votes for the opposition to keep the season open. Now things have changed enough that I believe that we are going to get the year-round season. Again, this is one of those things, you don't count your chickens before they're hatched, but I think we're on our way to having the season opened again year-round. And a lot of that's credit to, again, the NRC, a couple of the NRC commissioners and the MTPCA. They have been working tirelessly with the commissioners to try to get this vote going. And MUCC obviously is greatly involved as well. So things are looking up for the coyote hunters in the state.
Well, and there's a new kind of a new makeup of the NRC and a new chairperson as well. So I am cautiously optimistic as well. Chris, is all of your hunting this time of year done at night?
All of my hunting, yes, all of my hunting is done primarily at night, in the cover of darkness, primarily because I do have a young family still, so it is harder for me to get out to target the daytime coyotes. But at night, in the cover of darkness, it is quite amazing the number of times that I will pull into a field and there will already be a coyote out in the field. For example, 2 nights ago, we pulled into the field, got our rifles on the tripods, set them. We were only going to hunt about 10 feet away from the truck, so we weren't going to be very far away. And if you don't have to walk far, why walk far? Make the coyotes come to you, right?
Yeah.
But I grabbed the collar, and I was going to walk the collar out in the field. I typically walk the collar anywhere from 30 to 40 yards away from my rifles and set up. And I didn't get 2 steps away from the truck, and I seen a coyote out in the field, and it was already coming our way. So I just set the collar at my feet, and one of my tried and true that I love for coaxing coyotes is a baby cottontail. I put that on the collar, and he bounded right in, and we took him at about 100 yards. So very quick hunt, and that's what the darkness does for you. Those coyotes are out in those fields, they're mousing, and you have to be very careful when you're getting into a stand because they might already be there.
Well, you said he was already headed your direction. Had you started calling, or what were you doing that he was heading your direction already?
He was just heading our direction because he was traveling.
Okay.
Coyotes spend a lot of time just moving. So we just happened to be, it's one of those right place, right time moments. But there's the coyote we got last week, we let out a howl from the collar, and he howled back, and he wasn't more than 170 yards away from us. He just happened to be standing in a fence row. He stepped outside of the fence row, howled, and we knew exactly where he was at that point, and we're able to take that coyote as well. So they are actively in those prey zones during this time of year. It's a great spot to go.
Is it common for a coyote to howl this time of year?
It can be hit or miss. You know, I wish there was a really good way for me to say, like, oh yeah, they're going to be howling tonight, or they're not going to be. But one night they will be howling like crazy at every stand, and they also may not even commit to the collar and come in, but they'll respond in the way of a howl. Or there'll be nights they'll be dead silent, and they will come in dead silent. So just because you don't hear them doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah, not being a coyote. Well, I got to take a break here, Chris. Hang tight. Not being a coyote hunter, but I'm a turkey hunter. I would think, boy, it's a lot easier to hunt turkeys when they're vocal. You know you're there. Probably the same thing with coyotes. We got to take a break here. We're talking with Chris Kreiner. He is an expert coyote hunter, and he is an absolute master at documenting these hunts, especially these nighttime hunts. Head to his website, ckreinermedia.com. ckreinermedia.com. Kreiner is Kreiner. ckreinermedia.com. You will see what I mean. We'll take a break. When we come back, continue our conversation with Chris Kreiner. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge. Just go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, do I need to do anything more than that? You know what that is. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open. I just took it out of my pocket. It goes with me everywhere. I think a good knife is one of the most valuable tools that a person can carry. I carry mine every day, all day long. And I think if you're going to carry a knife, why not have it be a top quality handmade knife by craftsmen coming out of Michigan's Upper Peninsula? RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com is the website, but I encourage you to stop by their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. My brother-in-law, Rick, was traveling through there the other day, and he stopped and he said, man, I had no idea that this place was this big, this impressive. Yes, it is. I had hoped to be sitting in the studio right now with the prototype version of the Mike Avery knife, the signature version. Chris has got it done. He sent it to me. There was a snafu in the shipping, and they sent it back to the shop. So I don't have it in my hands, but I will have it very soon. Keep an ear out for that. I'll let you know details, of course, as that gets closer. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. Use the promo code Avery15, by the way, to get 15% off your entire order. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com, promo code Avery15. Talking right now with Chris Kreiner, his website, ckreinermedia.com. Chris is a hardcore coyote hunter. Chris, what's it like coyote hunting in the summertime at night as opposed to, later in the season? Obviously, the temperatures are different. But what's the entire experience like?
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there. When you got that heat and humidity in the summertime, you'd hope that you get a little bit of relief at night, but sometimes that's not the case. The humidity usually goes up at night and gets a little bit more unbearable at times. When we went out last Thursday, it was quite warm and humid, and we were sweating probably more than if we would have been out during the daylight. But it is a whole different feel. The animals act differently, but as far as the sounds used to bring them in, I usually don't change things up a lot between summertime and wintertime. Might run a little more in the way of breeding sounds in the January, February time frame, but this time of year I use a lot of pup howls because the pups are exploring a little bit more outside the den. They're being vocal themselves, and then prey distress, like I mentioned earlier, baby cottontail, adult cottontail, fawn distress. Those all work really well this time of year.
Are you using a decoy at all, or just calling?
So with nighttime hunting, I do not run a decoy, and part of the reason being is I call in a lot of owls, and owls will grab and take away your decoy from you. So I don't recommend you running a decoy at night. During the day, it is a must-have. Owls,
tell me more about that. I mean, they're feeding on the same critters that the coyotes are, apparently?
They are, yep. And it is amazing to me how good an owl's sense of hearing is. I will be running rabbit distress, and I'll have my caller pointed a certain direction where I expect the coyotes to be, and an owl will fly from the opposite direction, fly right over our top of our heads, and they usually don't land on the caller, but they usually land about 50 to 100 yards away from the caller, and they're just surveying the situation. But when they come swooping down past your head, because I think they can see you, but they might think you're just a tree or a bush. But once you move, it kind of that makes them jump a little bit too. So
that would be kind of well. It gets your attention, but be kind of cool too, huh?
It is great. It is neat seeing these birds of prey out in the fields. You don't see owls, especially during the day. It's not a very common bird that you will see. But at night, I mean, gosh, we're seeing multiple a night. So there are plenty of them around.
So when you're scanning the field at night these days, is it thermal? Is it infrared? I mean, what are you using?
So thermal technology has come a long way in both the clarity and the price. It's still a very expensive direction to go, but it shows you everything that's in the field, whether it be deer, coyotes, fox, and with the thermal technology, especially if you go into the higher units, you can tell which animals are a fox or a coyote, because fox season is currently closed. So you got to be able to identify which animal is approaching you. Night vision is still a very highly used item for shooting purposes for your rifle. Few guys use night vision for scanning and trying to look for animals, but it's not near as effective as thermal.
So what's the effective range on something like that? How far out can you see a dog coming into you?
So with the thermal technology today, I can see a coyote well over 1,000 yards.
Oh,
and based on its body, based on its body movement, you can't really see the finer details. Say, like, the difference between a fox tail and a coyote tail is very obvious when they're up closer. But when they're 1,000 yards away, there's certain body movements that a fox makes versus a coyote. So you can usually tell the difference between the two, but I've seen coyotes well over 1,000 yards with my thermal scanner.
And I imagine you see a lot of deer. Deer are very obvious. You know right away what those are.
Absolutely. And this time of year, the bucks are in velvet. So thermal is if instead of spotlighting, like, I know there's several guys that go around, they spotlight to see the deer in the area, but spotlights have a tendency to spook the animals. Whereas with thermal technology, you can scan the field, you can see a buck, you can see how big its rack is. I just posted a video yesterday of a buck that we took video of a couple nights ago, and it was a phenomenal Michigan deer.
So what are you using to shoot the animals these days? Are you an AR guy, or are you a bolt action guy?
So I've been an AR guy for the last few years, and I've tried all sorts of different calibers, 223, 243. And this year, I've got a lot of friends down south, and they've been swearing by the 6mm Creedmoor. And so I figured, why not? Let's build a 6mm Creedmoor. So I went with a bolt gun this year in 6mm Creedmoor. And I'll tell you, that darn thing's just super accurate. It's been working really well so far. Looking forward to the rest of the season with that rifle.
At what range are you usually taking the shot? How far out?
I generally try to get them within 200 yards. That's kind of like the sweet spot. If I can get them under 200, I know I just aim dead on, and I'm going to hit right where I'm aiming. But with the thermal technology that's out there today, I run the Pulsar Thermion, for example. It's got an LRF unit built into it. Well, within that unit, it's also got a ballistic calculator. So when you range the animal, it'll put a mark on the screen on where you got to aim to be able to impact the animal. You insert all of your ballistic data into an application, and then you connect it via Bluetooth to your optic, and all that data is uploaded to your optic then. So I took out a coon at 264 yards the other night, and the ballistic calculator was spot on. I hit right where it told me to aim.
Chris, you're describing the most high-tech type of hunting that I'm even aware of.
It is, when you can get that technology working flawlessly with a rifle, it is absolutely amazing what it can accomplish. I know guys down in Texas, they'll get a coyote that spooks or takes off, and it runs out there and it stops at 700 yards. They will range it, and they will touch off a shot, and they will drop that coyote. It's just absolutely amazing.
Have you gone out of state predator hunting?
I have. I've been to Texas and Nebraska are the two states I've done a fair amount of coyote hunting. Both states have just a tremendous coyote population. I'm usually going out there with some friends, but they're in their 50s, 60s, so they don't usually care to stay out super late. But if I went with some guys that could stay out all night, we would put up probably 20 coyotes a night out in those areas. There's just so many of them out there. It's so much fun.
Well, okay. You may have just answered my next question. I was going to say, for people who are having a hard time grasping what this is all about, why do people hunt coyotes? But you said right there, it's fun. But there's got to be more to it than that.
Obviously you got the predator control side of things, and then you got the camaraderie. I go out. I rarely go out on my own. I'm always including at least one or two buddies. I give them a quick call saying I'm going out tonight, and rarely do they say no, that they're busy. We always find a way to make it work and get out in the fields. So there's that aspect of it. Similar to waterfowl hunting, you get your buddies generally involved. You can chat with your buddies while you're on stand, even though you got to do it quietly. And it's just a great time with friends.
Well, and you talk about the predator control. I don't think that can be, that's a big deal these days, especially these days. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it depends on whether you're talking to livestock side of things. Coyotes can be detrimental to livestock populations. And then I know from this other side of it, however, when you got coyotes that are taking out deer, I do get some farmers going, well, I don't know if I want you to shoot the coyotes because we want the coyotes to eat the deer.
Right.
And my explanation to that is like, well, the coyotes don't discriminate. You want to get rid of the deer, but you want to get rid of the female deer. And the coyotes will take both. So really what we need to do as hunters for our farmers is we need to do a better job, especially in these areas with extremely high deer populations. We need to start taking some does. The DNR is throwing their hands up in defeat because we're not shooting enough does.
Yeah. Are there enough coyote hunters out there these days that these critters are starting to get smart? Are they getting educated? If you call them in one night and miss them, are you going to get a shot again at them?
You can call them in again. They sometimes can be a little more call shy, and that's from my experience. There will be plenty of others that say you can't educate a coyote. I'm here to disagree with that. I think you can educate coyotes, and I think they become a little smarter and a little harder to shoot once you miss them. However, that being said, they are still a predator. They're still looking for food, and they're still hunting. So if you're smart about your next move, when you try to call that coyote again, it is possible.
Real quick, maybe even a one-word answer, because I got to let you go. Has coyote hunting replaced deer hunting as your passion?
It has.
That's all I was looking for.
Hunter, but it's fun.
Chris, I got to let you go. Chris Kreiner. Always enjoy our conversations. Check out Chris's website. You'll really get a better understanding, a better feel for what Chris is doing, what he's talking about. The website is ckreinermedia.com, and Kreiner is Kreiner, ckreinermedia.com, to look at some of the videos and some of the images of what he's talking about. Nighttime coyote hunting right here in the great state of Michigan. We'll take a break. When we come back, Amy Trotter of MUCC. I want her reaction on proposed legislation to ban baiting for bear hunting. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Sebring Harbor Marina. If you fish the east side of Saginaw Bay, you go to Sebring Harbor Marina. You can find a boat launch, slips, fish cleaning station, a bait shop. Again, if you fish the east side of Saginaw Bay, the Sebring Harbor Marina is where you want to check it out. Great facilities, great location. You can find them online at SebringHarborMarina.com. That's SebringHarborMarina.com. Also on Facebook. Okay, I talked last week with MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter. And I didn't really want to bug her this week, right? I took up enough of her time last week. She was very generous, and I thought, I'm not going to bug her this week. And then we find out about a politician from the southern part of the state who has proposed legislation that would impact baiting for bear hunters here in Michigan. And I thought, okay, I got to get Amy back on the show. Amy, I apologize, but I appreciate you joining us. How are you this week?
I am doing great. And we can blame Justin Tomei, my coworker, because he's out of town. So,
actually, Justin was my first call, and he said, "Oh no, I'm involved in this leadership classes," which it's the same excuse he has used before. Amy, I think he just doesn't want me on the show.
I know that's not true.
Right.
He is getting educated.
Good, because he needs education. All right, Amy. So, is this piece of legislation, is this just an innocent effort by somebody, a politician who is ignorant to the issue and is trying to do something right, or is it something more nefarious? Is it actually an anti-hunting move?
Well, again, I have not personally talked to or actually met Congressman Sri Thanedar. So he is the Michigan congressman who introduced this piece of legislation. I don't know where his hearts and mind are, but I can tell you in his press release that his office sent out, he has a quote from Wayne Pacelli.
And there we go.
Many of your listeners might not know who that is, but for more than 20 years, Wayne Pacelli led the Humane Society of the United States. Now he's moved on. He's got another organization that he works for, but it was him quoted in the press release. So we definitely know that, the anti-hunting movement is behind this and trying again another backdoor way of eventually trying to, outlaw bear hunting here in a state like Michigan, but also nationwide.
And this legislation is not so blatant that it calls for the elimination of bear hunting, but it chips away at it. What is it specifically that he is trying to get done with this?
Yeah, because it's Congress, they can't, they can't affect what happens perhaps on, state lands. But for this particular instance, it is targeted at federal lands, and it would prohibit bear baiting on federal lands. So that's National Forest land, that's, out west, the Bureau of Land Management, that's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuges, any of those federal managed lands that are open to hunting, it would impact that.
Does this have a chance of going through?
I never want to say never, so you never know what kind of deals get struck in Washington, D.C., and we can't control all of those conversations. But, a junior congressman in the minority party with only a couple of co-sponsors at this stage, I don't think it has a chance this session. In Congress. That doesn't mean now that they've got that issue out there that he won't earn more co-sponsors, that it won't be a growing movement. And you never know when the winds of the politics will change in Washington, D.C., that, this issue won't die, that's for sure. But in this Congress, with this, makeup of majority and this president, I don't believe that this will move forward.
Your reach in Lansing is very deep. What is your impact, or what about Washington? Do you have any say? Do you have any chops there at all?
Absolutely, and we have worked on a handful of federal issues, but where we really work is to get our Michigan delegation on board, either in support or against something. So where we've been really effective is on issues for the Great Lakes. And actually Farm Bill as well. So we've been really effective at getting those kinds of dollars to the state of Michigan and the whole region to, protect our Great Lakes, to restore. On these kinds of issues, I think this is an easy, we could do an action alert and hopefully, educate our congressmen that this is a bad idea for Michigan. So, but again, right now, do we need to sound the alarm bells? Probably not. So certainly if it got legs, we would do that, though,
but
in a minute.
just the fact, Amy, that it is even brought up, though, in my opinion, it just further illustrates why MUCC is such an important organization. I got to let you go, but I would encourage people to go to the website, mucc.org, and sign up to become a member of the group, of the organization. You know, the anti-hunters are out there. This is an excellent example of this. This probably won't pass, but the fact that it's even brought up should be of concern. MUCC is fighting against such things. MUCC.org. Thank you, Amy Trotter, MUCC Executive Director. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM and north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And again, a big thank you to the folks at the Security Credit Union Foundation for stepping up to become a major sponsor of the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit MUCC's youth camp. As I am sitting here in the studio right now, we haven't had the outing yet. By the time you hear this show, we will have had it. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it was a big success. Now, the weather forecast looks a little iffy that morning, but we will make the most of it, have a good time, and raise money for a good cause. Now, the Ask Avery segment is kind of an interesting part of the show because it's your chance to get involved in the content of the program. You can send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, with your question, your comments, the concept you want to discuss. And this week I got emails from several people, and it's regarding the new state record flathead catfish. And I made a post on this on my Facebook page as well that got me thinking this would be an interesting point of conversation. Cody Carlson was bow fishing Plum Creek in Monroe County, I think it is. He thought he was going to shoot a big catfish. In fact, his words, he's a self-described true fishaholic. He said, "I thought I was about to shoot a channel cat for dinner. Turns out we have flatheads in this area too." So he was bow fishing and shot a flathead, 53 pounds, 43 inches. No, that's the old record. This one is 64 pounds, 45 inches. Now, this catfish was bigger than the one that Lloyd Tanner caught hook and line in the St. Joe River a couple of years ago, which got me thinking, and I have nothing at all against bow fishing. Bow fishing is a riot, it is legal, and it is an excellent way to help thin out or keep under control some of our non-native fish. But it got me thinking, is there a separate category for all of the fish, for fish that were caught hook and line, as opposed to spearfishing or bow fishing? Well, Michigan's state record fish are recognized by weight only. It doesn't matter how you took them as long as it was a legal method of take. And bow fishing is a legal method of take. So I guess my question is, and it's not something I'm going to answer here right now, but I want to get your thoughts on this, and send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Let me know what you think. Should state record fish be broken down by method of take? Or doesn't it matter? If we are honoring the angler or the fisherman or the bow fisherman, whoever it is, and I guess basically honoring that fish as well, right? Does it matter how the fish was taken? I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you this, that when I asked this question online, I had to delete the original post because the comments turned negative. Negative against bow fishing in general, which I will have no part of that. That is not the reason that I brought it up in the first place. Any legal method of hunting or fishing, I will stand behind 100%. And when the comments turned negative, I thought, this is not where can we go back to the previous segment here when we were talking with Amy Trotter of MUCC about some, my words, not hers, crazy, grandstanding Michigan congressman who has proposed legislation that would ban baiting for bear on federal lands here in Michigan and across the country? It's probably not going to get legs, probably not going to pass, thank God. But the fact that it is even out there, and some guy who lives in southern Michigan, downstate Michigan, wants to ban bear baiting across the northern part of the state, a thinly veiled attempt at banning bear hunting in general. So when you've got congressmen, when you've got politicians proposing such things, why are we as Michigan hunters and anglers, in this case in particular anglers, why are we criticizing a guy for legally shooting a new state record catfish? I don't think we should be. But it's an interesting discussion, isn't it? Thank you, a Security Credit Union, for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Maybe I'm going to reach out to Cody. Maybe I should talk to Cody about this whole experience, get his thoughts on it. But regardless, congratulations, Cody Carlson, for shooting a new state record flathead catfish. 64 pounds, 64.46 pounds, 45 inches long. Regardless of how this thing was taken, it's a monster. We'll take a break here. When we come back in our third and final hour, we're going to talk more about fishing, this time salmon fishing on Lake Michigan with Captain Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters. Coming up in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, and so glad to have you along with us as we continue to work our way through this summertime season here in the great state of Michigan. I mean, come on, the cicadas are buzzing, right? I think I've heard reports from everywhere except for maybe the UP now. Calendar says it's working our way through the end of July, looking at August here now. What does August mean? Well, it means summertime's starting to slip away, right? And if you have plans for this summer that you haven't had a chance to do them yet, well, do them now. Because honestly, it won't be long before the kids go back to school. Fall activities start to wind up and kick in, and man, then everything's crazy again. For me, I think of August, and I think, boy, back when my dad was still around, the month of August for us was headed to Lake Michigan, either Muskegon, Ludington, Manistee, Frankfort, mostly Manistee in the later years, to fish for salmon. If you have not done this, I would strongly encourage you to give it a try. There is nothing like the experience of heading out on Lake Michigan early in the morning and hooking into a big king salmon. Now, a king salmon is a Chinook salmon. They call them the king because in many ways they're the king of the Great Lakes. They are a hard-fighting, great-eating fish that the first time you hook into one, there's a good chance you're going to be addicted to it. Captain Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters has seen thousands, I don't think that's an exaggeration at all, thousands and thousands of kings come over the gunnels of his boat at Riverside Charters fishing out of Manistee over the years. And we've got him now on a cell phone. I think he's just coming in from a trip. Captain, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm at home, Mike. I made it home. I had a quick trip today. Only had 3 guys, and we got our 15. So it's pretty good. Pretty good morning.
I would say that's a pretty good morning, Paul.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. It's picking up, getting better and better. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of and bigger fish are starting to show up right now. So should be a good coming month here. So it seems the numbers are pretty good. Size is down from last year, the size of them, but it's been a few 30-pounders caught, but not many. I mean, the average size of them is like 15 pounds, 12 to 15. You get one occasionally 20, but the size is definitely down this year from last year.
Yeah, but you
it's
get
still fun fighting fish.
I was going to say, you get a 15-pound king on the end of the line, and for most people, that's about all they want to handle right there.
Yeah, you get your hands full with a 15-pounder. Yeah, they definitely fight good. And we're catching, a lot of coho. Not a lot, but we're starting to see some coho now, and some steelhead we're catching. Kind of a mixed bag right now. Some lakers, occasional lake trout right now, but mostly kings right now. So it's looking like August should shape up pretty good as long as we get some consistent weather. Quit getting north winds, which we just had a big north blow, and the lake got cold, and fish start coming in the pier heads. There was a few fish around the pier heads the last few days. So I see a lot of guys fishing on the pier.
Already, huh? Already.
Yeah, there's fish going up the river already, yep.
So explain to me how this works, Paul, and friends who are listening here. When you get that north wind, what's it do to the water, and why is that a factor?
It kind of flips the lake upside down, and it pushes the cold water in, brings it in towards shore. Yesterday I had 48 surface degree water, so
wow,
we've had like 68, 70 degrees, yeah. And yesterday I was 48 surface degree water. That was out 3 miles. Today we've had one day of south wind warming up, and today it was 63 on the surface, and the break was down like 40 foot already. So the south wind will definitely turn it back around. It'll actually make our fishing a lot better. Get a thermocline set up and concentrate the fish more, and usually a lot better fishing when you get that thermocline down a little bit.
It's crazy it can change that much in a day, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can be swimming on the beach one day, and the next day you're freezing. Like, what the heck?
So
the
when
darn north winds, man, just mess the water up.
When you go out in the morning, what's your plan of attack? What are you looking for? Do you always know where you're going, or do you make that decision as you're running out?
For the most part, we know where we're going. We kind of been fishing every day, so we've been hitting them in a certain area, and usually have a plan. And a lot of it's wind direction too. What the wind is doing, it'll decide where I'm going to go. Sometimes, depending what direction the wind is, and because generally I do like to fish with the waves, but yeah, I mean, in the morning, it's when you're fishing every day, you kind of have a good idea where you're going to go generally, unless you had a huge blow, then it's kind of a crapshoot where you're going to go which way. But
yeah.
Point Savo is definitely, at least in Manistee here, towards the point's been really good. Point Savo's really lighting up. There's a lot of fish at the point. I personally haven't been going there. I've been going shy of it, not running as far. But yeah, there are definitely big numbers of catches coming out of there right now.
Will salmon tend to stay in the same spot day after day, or will they move from day to day?
I mean, you got your areas that are definitely seem to hold fish where there's structure. You got better structure than other areas. But it seems like for us, you can't go wrong any from 80 to 120 foot of water generally. Seems like for early in the morning always holds fish. Kind of, that's where our bank is, you know, where the water drops from 50, 45, 50 foot down and starts dropping off. So generally there's fish always on that bank as a rule. Sometimes we do go out deeper, 250, 300 foot too. But
I maybe you and I talked about this the last time, or maybe it was somebody else I was talking about on Lake Michigan. But the offshore scum line steelhead trips, are those a thing of the past? Did you do that at all this summer?
No, I have not been offshore at all. I mean, for the most part, just some years it does materialize, but for this year, I shouldn't say I went out one time, but it really wasn't a scum line. But it don't seem like it sets up like it used to back in 20 years ago. We used to get big temperature breaks.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, they still get fish out there. There's still fish out there to be had. It's definitely steelhead. Generally, that's where you'll go for steelhead. A lot of coho are out there. I mean, there's guys that a lot of times will just do a west troll and never turn the boat, and catch fish all the way.
Yeah.
So but yeah, there's definitely fish out deep. There always is, but just don't seem to get them big breaks like we did, back in the day. Offshore where it really held a lot of fish. The lake has changed. It's probably to do with the zebra mussels. Cleaning up the water.
That's what I was going to. How has it changed? It's visibility. Is that what it is, Paul?
It's got to be visibility. The way the sun warms the water up, and I think it warms the surface water up a lot warmer now than it used to be. But I don't know. That's my guess, but who knows?
Well, listen, your guess, though, as a guy who's been out there his entire life, your guess carries a lot of weight with me, that's for sure. When you talk about, kings are kind of known as being a low-light fish. So if you've got better visibility out there, if your water's clearer now, are you going out there, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning now to get set up? What's your schedule look like?
Me, I leave about 5. Now usually, get set up about 5:30. So usually that first light, just before it gets light, is usually pretty good. It's been the last 3, 4 days anyways. That first hour and a half is usually your best fishing of light. Fish are feeding pretty heavy, and it's been pretty good that first light lately. So yeah, you don't really want to miss that first light fishing. So it's definitely an early fishery and normally a late fishery in the evening too. Towards dark, and usually right just before dark, it's usually pretty good fishing generally.
Yeah, but if you're out there in the morning at 5 o'clock, then you're out there at night at 9:30. That doesn't leave a lot of sleeping time between those trips.
No, we run ragged when we're running doubles, that's for sure. Get tired.
And that time,
right now, today, I'm fighting wind. We're dealing with a lot of winds lately. Like right now, we got big, heavy salt winds coming in, small craft advisory, so I probably end up canceling my trip tonight. I end up having to cancel a lot of trips anymore. So you end up not fishing a lot of doubles. But it seems like that wind always picks up in the afternoon.
How do you make the decision to pull the plug on a trip?
It's depends on the direction of wind, of course. Where it's coming from, it dictates how rough the lake's going to get. And so sometimes it's a hard call. There's times I cancel and I wish I wouldn't have. And there's times that I'm glad I canceled.
Sure.
But it gets 5, 6 footers. Depends on my crew, who it is. If I got seasoned crew or kids, or it just depends on the crew too.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to make a miserable time.
No. You don't want to go out there and have people be uncomfortable. Hang tight, Paul. I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters in Manistee. His website, riversidecharters.com. Riversidecharters.com. Paul is one of the most well-respected captains on Lake Michigan. That's my opinion, and I think a lot of others share that as well. He's been out there his entire life, and he's kind of a go-to guy for a lot of people. He has a lot of repeat clients, but maybe you can get out with him as well. Go to the website, riversidecharters.com, to find out. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee, WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe. 2 coastline cities, WSJM 94.9. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Versa Skins. As Charlie Rood just said, just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and then snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute? If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, or as Charlie said, 50X, although I don't think they're building 50X, or if you are a saddle hunter, and that doesn't mean you hunt while riding a horse. It means you hunt from a tree stand with a saddle. VersaSkins can help you out there as well. Go to the website, versaskins.com, or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. VersaSkins, just change your skin, Charlie. For the season you're in. There you go. All right. Right now we're talking with Captain Paul Schlafley, and the season we're in right now, or certainly coming into, is salmon season. The month of August is really known as the prime time in many Lake Michigan anglers' minds because the fish are as big as they're going to get, and they're coming in close to shore, and they're going to eventually run the rivers. Captain Paul Schlafley has been watching this cycle since he was a kid. I mean, he's been a captain out there since he was a kid. Paul, earlier I called Chinook salmon the king. I mean, is that really your average client? Are they interested in kings, or will they be happy with steelhead or Lakers or browns or anything else that'll pull on the line?
I think most people prefer kings. You know, they want kings. And I mean, some people it doesn't matter. They just want to catch fish, but everybody wants to catch a king of big fish. And generally, like you said, the kings run big. And I mean, of course, our lake trout get big too, but the kings generally, as a rule, run pretty good size, and they're the hardest fighters. But I mean, I think for the most part, people just want to catch fish. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with catching a steelhead or coho, and especially for eating a coho, probably one of the best to eat.
A big king, though, I mean, they'll tax your gear, right? A big king's going to make a drag scream as he makes a run, and there's really nothing else like it, is there?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they run and pull out the drag. Sometimes they'll run 300-400 feet out or more. And you don't really get that generally with any other kind of fish. And yeah, they're definitely, we call them screamers. When they hit, and they hit hard and run hard, and they're definitely good fighters.
How do you, when you get, say, doubles, you get 2 kings on at once? Now, a double for Saginaw Bay walleye is nothing. I mean, it's fun and it's exciting, but we don't worry about what you would worry about if you get 2 kings screaming on the end of the line. How do you deal with something like that?
It could be, especially early in the morning in the dark, when like yesterday morning, I had 4 on at once, right in the dark. And you can't see where your lines are at, and you're trying to figure out. It's all like a puzzle trying to get, everything straightened out, and sometimes it gets really ugly, and you lose a lot of gear. I mean, it can start cutting all their lines off and coming in one big mess. And they're notorious for hitting a dipsy diver and going out in your boards, if you got boards out, and getting into your board and making a big mess. It can get ugly. And I mean, when I had grills out years ago, we had 12 on at once, and they're all kings. I mean, and we got them all. I mean,
well, you had a seasoned crew with that group.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, but yeah, it's crazy. It's called craziness, chaos.
I'm thinking about this. Well, that's what I'm thinking about. This situation you described yesterday. 4 kings on at once in the dark. Nope. I mean, that's got to be like the pinnacle of the Great Lakes fishing experience right there.
Pretty exciting. And yeah, you need a good light to figure out where your lines are at, so you don't get all crossed and get them out, not tangled up. And it can be chaos, that's for sure.
Did you get all 4 of those fish?
That one, I think we did on that one, because I had another 4-banger at the Pierheads the other night. Yeah, them we didn't get, but yeah, that one I think we got 3 of them out of them 4. But seems like you always lose 1 or 2. It seems like.
Now you mentioned the Pierheads. I never liked fishing the pier heads because I didn't like trolling and boat traffic, but sometimes that's where you got to go, especially later in the year, huh?
Yeah, that was an evening trip, and I was slow. It was a couple nights ago, and it was a slow evening trip, and I wasn't doing much. And I knew they caught some there in the morning, so there was no boats, and I had the whole thing to myself. And it was pretty good. Sometimes the evenings can be really good in there, and fish are coming in, and there was a lot of bait in there. The harbor was full of bait. So the fish are, in there feeding on that bait. So it can get pretty crazy in there sometimes because of the bait in there. That cold water brings them in there.
Is it still the case that later in the season it'll turn from a spoon bite over to a plug bite, or is that a thing of the past?
Generally the case, yeah. It seems like plugs get better as the season goes on. We're getting them on plugs right now, but as a rule, like when they start getting in closer, it's definitely seems like the plugs are the way to go. Catch more fish on plugs than anything, especially around the pier heads. Because later in the year we have to fish around there a lot because fish are all congregating right out in front of the pier heads, and so it's definitely generally a plug bite. You can catch them on spoons though.
I gotta believe when you get in tight there though, next to the pier heads, you're not running like 300 copper or something like that, right? Everything's close and tight to the boat, at least if you can.
Oh, and there it's generally 2-3 color lead cores and dipsy divers and downriggers. So it's definitely a shorter program and tight, and around the pier heads, and it's you can catch them on flashers in there too. I catch a lot of fish on flashers and flies and meat. They'll hit about anything, but generally plugs, like you say, are the most effective. It seems like they like plugs.
Why do you think the fish are running smaller this year? I mean, they're still nice fish, but smaller than last year.
I don't know that. I mean, there seems to be a lot of bait. We're seeing a lot of alewife. The fish have been full of alewife and good size alewife. So that I don't know that answer. The bait must be down a little bit from what it's been. Be the only reason I could think. But we've been seeing a lot of bait fish, especially in the shallows. But the fish have been full of bait, so that part I can't really answer. It's definitely must be down a little bit, the alewife population from what we had the last few years.
Yeah,
but it's hard to say that.
Where are we right now in the up and down cycle that for years has been Great Lakes salmon fishing? Where are we right now? I mean, is the fishing as good as it was in the old days, or not nearly as good, or what are you looking at out there these days, Paul?
For here, I don't know if it'll ever be as good as the old days, but it's still pretty darn good. Of course, our technology is a lot better now. We know a lot how to catch them better, easier now than we did back then. But so I would say it's still a heck of a fishery. I can't say it's more than back in the day what we used to have, but it's still pretty darn good. I mean, you still go out and catch limit catches like salmon, and especially, I think a lot of it's to do with water conditions too. If we can get the water set up right, we'd be lights out fishing right now. But I can't say that how back in the day if it was better or not, but it's still pretty good.
Well, when you talk about the technology and what you have these days, what are you talking about? How are you approaching things differently, and what gear do you have now that you didn't have before?
Well, I mean, back when I first started, we didn't run the rotators like we did now. We just ran Dodgers and squids, and now we're running the rotators with meat rigs and planer boards, and we didn't have the lead cores. We didn't run quite the lead core back in the early days that we do now, and just the way we fish, I think, is different now back than it was in the 70s and 80s. It's come a long way with different rigs and different, the flashers, the rotators are different compared to back then, and they catch a lot more fish, I think, than they. Not that I think Dodgers would still work good, but when the rotators came out, I think the catch rates went way up.
So have these tactics evolved because the bait fish have changed, or just you guys just got better at dialing into what the Kings wanted?
Probably that, yeah. I mean, dialing in, and fish are spookier now. I mean, running boards, lead cores, and coppers, and getting away from the boat when the fish are real spooky. And with this clear water, I mean, the fish are definitely a lot more spookier than they used to. I mean, the water was dirtier back then in the lake, and we didn't have the zebra mussels, so you could catch your fish just, probably, you just caught them on downriggers and dipsies. We didn't run many boards back then. Now the water's clear, and you got to get the lines away from the boat, and try to catch fish that are spookier, and fishing down deeper, fishing deep. And my last fish today came down 250 foot.
Jeez.
Yeah, nice king.
How many lines are you running? When you go out and set up in the morning, how many lines are you setting up?
I'm generally running 3 to 4 boards aside, two divers aside, and 2 downriggers.
We're talking like 14 rods.
Yeah, generally. Depends on, if the fish are deeper, I don't run as many rods. If they're up high, if the thermocline's up higher, I run more rods. It's because you run more, lighter lead cores. And the deeper they are, the less rods we run.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. You got a dozen rods out there and you're fishing 100 feet down. In my mind, the first thing I think about is, oh boy, that's going to be a bunch of tangles.
Yeah, exactly. You start running your dipsies out 300-400 foot, start hitting fish on them. It goes into your boards and you get tangles. So you start eliminating a lot of your boards when the fish are deep. And generally, your boards aren't as effective when they're deep like that. But right now, them fish are coming down 30, 40 foot. So a lot of them, so we're catching them all over the place up high. And like I said, that last fish I caught was down deep.
Yeah.
Finish off my trip.
The best month of the year is coming up. And Captain Paul Schlafley, you're going to be busy. That's why I wanted to get you now before you run yourself ragged doing doubles for a month straight. Hey, do you have any openings at all, Paul? Or are you pretty much booked up now?
The month of August, I'm pretty well filled. I got some openings after Labor Day.
Okay.
Which would generally be pretty good fishing. Last couple of years, it's been really good after Labor Day.
Yeah, the fishing will be good, but the crowds won't be as bad. So go to riversidecharters.com, riversidecharters.com to get in touch with Captain Paul Schlafley, one of the best on Lake Michigan. And listen, if you don't make it out with him fishing kings in the lake this summer, you can always fish in the river with him this fall and right on through the winter. Riversidecharters.com is the website, riversidecharters.com. Captain Paul Schlafley, again, one of the best out there. Appreciate your time. Take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things to talk about, and of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across this great state of Michigan, including WIOS in Taos. That's 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. And, of course, WSGW in Saginaw. I say, of course, because I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. It's 790 AM, 100.5 FM. It's an interesting day because I started out the day in here with young Jonathan Dent. And I said, and now Charlie Rood's in here. And I said, John, this is going to screw people up because the crowds who would normally be waiting for Charlie don't know that he's doing this because you started out. John had a very astute observation. He said, Charlie doesn't want to come in here too early because the crowds will get too big. So he's trying to keep the crowds out there guessing. And he's right because there's only about half a dozen cars out there right now. And what are they chanting when Charlie leaves? Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. And if you don't believe me, honestly, you come to WSGW AM or FM Wednesday about noon, and you will see the crowds there. I'm not kidding you. I wouldn't do that to you. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and prop. Oh, forgive me, Father, I have sinned. I might have told a little bit of a lie right there. Reader, a great company to work with. I've worked with these folks for several years now, and they always do a wonderful job. I told you last week I came home and my trees were perfectly trimmed. And it was a pretty hot, muggy, miserable day. I was glad I didn't have to do it, but the guys from Reader were out there. They were working hard, and they did a great job. They always do. And I think that's one of the things that Reader's pushing right now is the fall pruning season. The trimming season is just around the corner. The guys came out and did my trees, and then once the leaves drop, I'm actually going to ask them to come out again and really tighten those trees up there. My directions or request is always trim those things down as far as you can without killing them. And if you kill them, we'll plant new ones, right? But they do a great job, and they will. They've been doing it for 60 years, so you know they do a great job. ReaderLandscaping.com is the website, ReaderLandscaping.com. Okay, a couple of other things. As we are here in the studio right now, we haven't had the golf outing yet. By the time you hear the show, we will have had it. But I am going to go out on a limb and say as long as Mother Nature cooperates and we're able to get out there, it's going to be a great event. It was a great event. We raised a bunch of money for MUCC's youth camp. Interesting thing that happened at the Avery house the other day, and it wasn't just at our house, but the houses next to us as well. We have a pond behind our house, and it's kind of a community pond. We don't own it, but it's back there. It's in our backyard. 2 beavers showed up on the pond. Now, our neighbor Gail at first said, "Hey, did you see those beavers out there?" And I thought, "Oh, I don't think." But then I remembered Gail is a retired biologist, wildlife biologist. So, yeah, she knows what a beaver looks like. And then I saw them. And last night I was actually out mowing the lawn, and I looked out on the pond, and there's 2 beavers out there, one like 40 yards from me. I walked over to the edge of the bank of the pond, and he just stood there and looked at me. And the other one on the other side of the pond. Now, I don't, this is not a body of water I would have expected to see beavers. Muskrats, all over the place. Beavers, not so much. And listen, I don't live out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in town. I'm on the edge of town, but I'm in town. So it's really, really cool that we have beavers on the pond behind the house until they start doing some damage. And they will, because that's what beavers do. They're going to try to mess with the water level there, and they're going to start cutting down trees because that's what beavers do. So it's cool for now, but when things start, then I think we're going to have to do something about those beavers. But anyway, it's fun to watch them out there right now. I took my crossbow up to Jay's to get it. And this is the thing about today's modern crossbows. They are so high tech, and there is so much energy stored in these things. And this is something to keep in mind, too, that not all archery shops will tell you when you spend a bunch of money on one of these new high tech crossbows, and you will because they're not cheap. It's extremely important that you do regular routine maintenance on these things. And by you, I don't mean you, that you take them into the shop. I have to get my strings and cables replaced every year. And that's, it's like, I don't remember what it was, like $150. I haven't picked it up, but it's not cheap. So you're going to spend a bunch of money on the crossbow and then a couple $100 a year to keep that thing safe and up to snuff. So just keep that in mind. And the reason I did that was because, I'm getting ready here in 3 weeks now to head up to White River, Ontario, Canada for a bear hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. So looking forward to that. I had hoped that by now in the studio, in my hand, I would have the prototype Rapid River Mike Avery signature knife. I don't. I talked to Chris Durson at Rapid River. He said, "Mike, I sent that knife to you, but there was a snafu in the mail, and they sent it back to me at Rapid River." So he's hopefully by the time you hear this show, I'll have it. And I will show it off to you as well. And we're going to start pre-ordering that knife right away. It will not ship until the first week in September, but we're going to open pre-orders on that. Well, as soon as I get the knife in my hand and as soon as I give Chris the go-ahead. And he said, "Look, Mike, I'm pretty confident when you see this knife, you will give me the go-ahead." Okay. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap this whole thing up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I have asked Dave to do a catfish recipe. I had the unique and not pleasant experience of filleting a catfish for the first time last week. And we'll just leave it at that. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Like to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, as we will do this week as well. And I have asked Dave to do a catfish recipe because I felt like earlier in the show I may have been a bit disrespectful to catfish, to the fish itself. And certainly, listen, catfish are a wonderful game fish. And I have no disrespect or nothing. I don't mean to diss the catfishermen at all, in the least. But just when I'm out on Saginaw Bay targeting walleye, I want to catch walleye. I don't want to catch catfish. We had a crew that loves catfish. As a result, when we caught catfish, we kept catfish. And because I didn't want to be stick in the mud, I actually filleted one of the catfish. I'm not very good at it. My buddy Doug Cook was excellent. He got beautiful fillets off those fish. Me, not so much. But I got to tell you something. If I can go the rest of my life and never fillet another catfish, yeah, I'm okay with that. Wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar has cooked up a lot of catfish over the years, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. David, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
I'm really good. Too bad for your catfish phobia.
I don't know if it's a phobia. It's just I want to catch walleye. I want to clean walleye, and it's just they're a different critter. I don't like the spines. I don't like the sliminess. I don't like the yellow meat. But that's my prejudice, and I know they are excellent. And the guys that we took out fishing, they loved catfish. They made sandwiches out of them. They said they'd rather have that than the walleye.
Yep. Some people would.
So you're going to take your beloved walleye New Orleans dish and make it a catfish dish.
Right. We always used to have a catfish special at the restaurant, Oscar and Joey's, and it was our number one hit to make it New Orleans style. And we used to get nice sizers, like a 8 to 10 ounce fillet. So, and the big ones, when you catch them in the bay, you want to skin it deep. You want to remove any of the red meat. Not that it's really strong or anything, just for the aesthetic beauty, I guess. So, and at the restaurant where I'm working now, King's Dish, we do a salmon with this same recipe, and it'll be on this week's special. Mm. So you need about 6 to 8 ounces of boneless, skinless fish per person, a can of artichoke hearts drained and quartered, and this is for 4 portions, 12-ounce package of fresh mushrooms sliced thin, a quarter cup of onions diced medium fine, 2 eggs beaten up very well, cup of flour, half a stick of butter, or maybe even a little more. You can never have too much butter in a dish. 3/4 of a cup of the dry white wine, such as a Chablis or a Chardonnay. Whatever you're going to drink with the meal, by all means, use it. And 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley and the juice of a lemon. So you're going to dredge the fillets in flour, then in beaten up eggs, and you're going to add a coat of oil in a very hot pan and place it skin side up. Don't overcrowd them, because you can put this in a casserole if you got too many fillets. Brown on both sides. And so the rib side will be up facing the diner. And you're going to add the wine, the mushrooms, the onions, the butter, artichoke hearts. And I like to put shrimp and scallops in this dish, kind of differentiate between. You're going to probably use 3 to 4 shrimp per person, and then maybe 1 to 2 ounces of bay scallops per person. And I'm going to cook it down uncovered, reduce the volume over high heat until thick and creamy. And then you're going to place the fillets on a warm plate and spoon the sauce, plus the shrimp and the scallops over each one, and sprinkle with a little bit of parsley to give it a little bit of eye appeal. And this is a great way to use a lot of fish. We've done sheep's head this way. We've done catfish. We do special salmon. We do walleye New Orleans. It's just a good all-around. And when I lived in Florida, I used to do redfish. So, by all means, try it.
How would you describe catfish? Because like I said, the guys on the boat, they were so excited when we caught those fish. They loved them.
Oh, I know. It's real nice and firm, and it's a pretty light meat. You know, not completely white, but not like a walleye would be. But the flavor is very mild, and it cooks up just great. It takes a little bit longer to cook because it is such a firm meated fish.
Do you, when you clean them, do you take fillets off the side like you would a walleye, or do you take a big fillet off the back?
No, I do it right off the side.
Off the sides, okay.
Starting at the head and do a fillet down each side.
I
Remove the fin.
Yeah, I would just have to do more of them to get better at it. But you know what? I don't plan on doing more of them. I gotta be honest. David, always a pleasure. You have a great week, and we will talk to you next time. And why don't surprise me next week? I had a suggestion for catfish this week. I don't like doing that to you, so you surprise me for next week. All right?
No, you can give me any suggestion you like. You know, it's your show. I'll do whatever you require.
But it's your segment, so you come up with something next week. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. As are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show, and I don't know what I'd do. I'm certainly not ready to retire. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.